Portugal are smashing it in this Euro so far. I'd even go to say they might be the favourites, give or take Spain or France maybe, but they're definitely up there. And they've got a 41-year-old centre-back. So in this video we are going to look at how a has-been Pepe has rejuvenated his career and is looking like the best defender in the tournament. Bit of background on him: he was actually born in Brazil, in Maceió, and then when he was 17 he signed a pre-contract with Marítimo in Portugal, a club in Madeira. Pepe wasn't a wonder kid. He was in the B team for a lot of his time at Marítimo for his first season, and in the second season under a Ukrainian coach he managed to play most of the year, being in different positions, even in defensive mid at times, which I think we can see from his ball playing abilities. He's not just a traditional centre back. But despite having talks with Sporting the year before in 2003, he signed with FC Porto in 2004, just before they finalised winning their historic treble under Jose Mourinho. And this seems the first part of Pepe's career which seemed like a maybe missed opportunity, but also a blessing in disguise, because Jose Mourinho was maybe the most highly touted coach in the world in 2004, obviously made his move to Chelsea, and he'd just coming off winning a huge underdog story in the Champions League. And what do we know Jose Mourinho for? His defensive masterclass. And I think he showed that with people like Paulo Ferreira and Ricardo Carvalho in his team. However, probably in Pepe's favour, Mourinho took the players I just mentioned to Chelsea with him in 2004, which probably unlocked a lot of more game time for Pepe, because if he had Ricardo Carvalho, who was one of the best centre-backs in Europe at the time, in front of him, there was just no chance he was going to get in the team. And then at Porto, playing under Dutch coach Adrianaze, Pepe won 2 league titles playing in a back three, which then later put Pepe onto the global stage when he signed for Real Madrid in 2007 for about 30 million euros, which was an insane amount of money at the time. He did win the league in his first season with the club. However, there were still players like Fabio Cannavaro there. He had Salgado in front of him, and I think it took him some time to become a confirmed first team regular. He was in and out of the squad, and it's not like he just rode the bench for his first 2 years. He was injured quite a lot of the time, but then in his third year, unfortunately, he ruptured his ACL, which put him out for most of the season, only playing 10 games in the league that year. And I think this is one of the things that shows Pepe's character, because when you do your ACL in, some players, it's the end of their career, and especially in your mid-20s when you're fighting for a spot in Real Madrid, and in future years under Jose Mourinho, it's a tough feat. However, in the 2010-11 season, Mourinho did actually come to Real Madrid, and obviously who did he bring? His best mate Ricardo Carvalho, and Pepe and Carvalho actually formed a decent partnership for a season in Madrid. It was actually reported that he was thinking of leaving on a free in 2011 because of his high transfer fee bringing him from Porto. He actually had to take a bit of a pay cut, which saw him on about 1.8 million euros a year, which put him down there with the lowest earners at the club. But that was all sorted out, and he signed a new contract until 2015. And in my opinion, in the early mid-2010s, this is where the most rock and roll partnership in defence was born, at least in the 21st century, and that was Pepe and Sergio Ramos. We were in the absolute peak of the El Clasico. You had Messi versus Ronaldo. You had Casillas versus Victor Valdez. You had Benzema, David Villa, Pedro, Bale later on. All these brilliant players. However, it was the defenders that I think made a lot of those El Clasicos, obviously Messi and Ronaldo aside, because it was the fieriness in them. Of course, Piqué may be the most placid player to ever play the game. However, Carlos Puyol was straight there with Pepe and Sergio Ramos. And we can actually see this because in the 21st century, Pepe comes 21st with the most yellow cards with 165. And then his best mate Sergio Ramos is first on the list with 259. So you can argue discipline wasn't the main strength in that defence, but they definitely put fear into other people's attacks. And I think this was probably brought from his childhood, because apparently when Pepe shaved his head, his mum absolutely hated it, but his dad said he's got a man's haircut now. And he even quoted saying, if you've got to defend ugly, you've got to defend ugly, which is probably instilled from a young age for the defender. But unfortunately with this, I do think his reputation preceded him at times, because I don't think he got the credit where it was due, because he was a fantastic centre-back. Technically, positionally, everything. He knew the game inside out. But unfortunately, because his highlight reels, as I'll show you on screen now, it was booting that lad on the back when he was going through on goal. Or it was just those silly tackles he would make out of just frustration. And unfortunately, once you get a reputation, and especially in the Spanish media, you are going to get hounded for it. But I think it all started to go slightly pear-shaped for Pepe when a certain player called Rafael Varane was brought in, because Jose Mourinho was quoted near the end of his career at Madrid saying Pepe has a problem and he has a name, he's called Rafael Varane. He was the future, wasn't he? Sergio Ramos was maybe the best centre-back in the world at the time, and then Rafael Varane was such a promising young player. I think, unfortunately, Pepe was the odd man out. He's aging, he was getting into his late 20s, early 30s. Obviously, he had an ACL injury, and he struggled with injuries as well throughout his career at Real Madrid. And it led to a bit of a fallout, which it seems like every Real Madrid player falls out of the club regardless of who they are, Ronaldo, Casillas, when they leave the club. And Pepe actually spoke on the situation, saying, "They didn't offer me a one-year extension with the possibility of a second. It's Real Madrid's policy, it's the rules of the club. They offered me a one-year contract. There are ways of talking and negotiating, but the way Real Madrid went about it wasn't the right way to do things." And I think he fell out with Zinedine Zidane, who was a coach at the time. And they saw him leave the club, unfortunately, and eventually sign a 2-year deal worth about 9.5 million with Turkish club Besiktas. And I think all of us football fans who remember his transfer could agree that it felt like this was the end of Pepe's career, basically. I think a lot of people go to the Turkish league to maybe get a paycheck, play in a very passionate league, but you know, it's not the top 5 leagues anymore. I think people assumed he was just on his way out because he was 33 years old, and unfortunately he was just at the back of people's minds. However, despite having his contract terminated in 2018 due to Besiktas trying to cut costs and take down the wage bill, he had quite a solid career in Turkey. He helped Besiktas top their Champions League group to then lose to Bayern in the round of 16, unfortunately. But from all accounts, he had a good time in Turkey. He won Turkish Defender of the Year, and he left the club on good terms. He even paid a lot of the staff on his way out for helping him. But saying all of that, I think then this completely confirmed in everyone's minds that Pepe is completely done. What was he, 33, 34 at the time? And he'd just been released from Besiktas. He's probably going to go back to Portugal, maybe play for a lower club in the division, maybe go back to Brazil. But in fact, he actually joined Porto. And in 2019, Porto were back on the up. It was a new era at the club under Sergio Canseco, and they just won their first title in 5 years. But unfortunately for Pepe, Eder Militao and Felipe were playing for Porto at the time, and they were two of the most highly touted players in Europe at the time. However, a stroke of luck, Eder Militao went to Real Madrid for a very large fee, and Felipe went to the other side of Madrid and played for Atletico. And I think this is where he brought back his reputation. He went on to win 2 leagues with Porto again, and he got in the Team Year in the Premier Liga 4 times in a row. And in your late 30s, that's an incredible achievement. It's similar to maybe what Thiago Silva did at Chelsea. It seemed like he had got quicker from his old days. I don't remember him being a really quick centre-back. However, he seemed to be fitter in his late 30s, and I feel like his intelligence had increased, but I think his emotional intelligence had increased a lot, because he was no longer, I could see in the Champions League, he was no longer doing the silly tackles that he used to do at Real Madrid. And we saw that after they beat Arsenal in the Champions League last season, that yes, he might have not had the best game in the world at the Emirates, however, he was still holding his own against a Kai Havertz, against a Bukayo Saka, against a Martinelli. These are some of the best attackers in the world, or at least in England at the time, and he just didn't look out of place. And I think this takes us to the present day. This video is mainly based off the recent Turkey game that Portugal have played. They will play again by the time this video has come out, but he was just magnificent in that game. They were playing in Dortmund. He got clapped off by both fans, which, yes, I know he probably has a good reputation in Turkey. However, it's an insane achievement that a 41-year-old player is being clapped off by his own nation and the opposing nation, because he was brilliant in that game. I think he's learned that he doesn't have the legs that his partner Ruben Diaz has, so Ruben Diaz can press forward and he can be more of the sweep. And Roberto Martinez, the coach of Portugal at the moment, has said that he prepares 24 hours a day. He says some players prepare only 2 or 3 hours a day. Pepe is complete 24 hours a day focused on football. And if he does manage to win another Euros with Portugal, because let's not forget, he was one of the main reasons why Portugal managed to win the Euros in France in 2016. They were up against a very promising young French team who were huge favourites to win it. Portugal were nowhere near favourites. He lost Cristiano Ronaldo in that game, and he managed to win the man of the match of the final. He's been in 3 team of the tournament in the Euros, so 3 times in a row He's been picked as one of the 2 best centre-backs in the entire tournament, and I can probably see him, if Portugal get further on, being picked for a 4th time. But he truly is just one of the greats of the game. I think he's one of the most underrated centre-backs we'll ever see. But we'll see. I still think Portugal could easily win this Euros, and it's going to put him down in the great of history, like I said. But if you like this video, if you could leave a like, that'd be fantastic. And if you could subscribe to the channel, that would really help me out. But thanks for watching.